Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And this week, something that's close to every financial advisor's heart. It's the psychology of money.
The psychology of money, I'd say, is close to everybody's heart, isn't it, Mike?
Maybe some more than others.
So the psychology of money is pretty much talking about how I would love chiseling abs, glistening in the sun. I can achieve that goal. I know what I need to do. Yet, I don't have chiseling abs. And it is the exact same thing when it comes to money, Mike. Is most people know what they need to do unless they put their trust into somebody they shouldn't. Or they want to do it the easy way instead of the hard way. But we don't get where we want to for a lot of people.
Yeah, and we find this really interesting. It's sort of two sides of the financial advice coin, right? There's the math of money, where we can explain the projections, the returns, the income that you'll be able to generate in retirement, all of these sorts of things. And then the flip side of that coin is the psychology of money, who you trust, why you trust them, the decisions you make, even though you have the evidence in front of you, is absolutely fascinating. And we see it quite a bit where, it might be a Friday, we have a meeting with a customer and we say, hey, you need to do X, Y, Z to get to the outcome you want or achieve your goal. They leave and they're like, yep, perfect, let's do it, great. Monday morning comes around, there's an email sitting in the inbox, oh, hey, I was at a barbecue on the weekend, I spoke to my uncle, he'd said something different, so now we're not going to do this. Very frustrating.
Yeah, and happens a lot. Another example of that, in quite a different way, is my sister who's based in Australia. And my sister obviously knows I'm a financial advisor because of the award-winning Checks and Balances awards to come. And she's come to me and been like, James, can you give me some financial advice? And I said, you're based in Australia. And she goes, yeah, but I trust you. And I was like, but I don't know about Australia. And she goes, well, whenever you've got some spare time, it'd be great to sit down and talk about your situation. The reality is it would be far better for her to pay for somebody in Australia to get advice from, but she doesn't go down that road because she trusts me, even though that trust is misplaced.
Yeah. Misplaced, you reckon?
I think so. Well, in this example.
Yeah, it is. I mean, unless you're giving advice on the Parramatta Eels, you should probably hang back from giving advice.
And
about
what
Australia.
kind of advice are you going to give in that space?
It's better than the Warriors. And I think that's really interesting, right? Because, especially in New Zealand, from a very young age, we're taught that it is impolite to talk about money. You shouldn't tell people how much you earn. You shouldn't discuss that. People find it very difficult because of that to have discussions about their finances with their spouse, their family, their loved ones, their friends, anything like that, to ask for help if they're in trouble. And I think that stigma really plays into how people make decisions about things. And one of the really interesting things on my side, and I see this all the time, and I'm sorry, guys, but I'm just going to call it out. We'll be sitting, in an initial meeting for a mortgage application or, the discovery, and it'll be a partner, so, and there'll be the female sitting there and the male sitting there, and I say, do you have any short-term debts?
What do they say, Mike?
Instantly, usually the female in the situation is like, nope, like we've got one credit card and that's it. And the guy's like, yeah, that's it. And you're like, oh yeah, that's it, is it? Like, and there will either be short-term debt that she doesn't know about, or it'll be, yeah, he's got a credit card and I've got a credit card, and I go, what's the limit? 10 grand. How much is owing? I pay it off every month. And I'm like, I know there's about $9,990 of debt sitting on that card, right? And they're embarrassed, so they do not talk about it.
So the question is, in that example, Mike, is when we're coming to the psychology of money, why does, in that situation, you've got debt, you don't talk to your partner about it? Why are you keeping it a secret?
Yeah, so the big ones here, right, is emotion is a big part of money, right? And also part of people's relationships as well. But it's very easy to feel like a failure with that sort of thing. You lose face. It's embarrassing. It's almost like, I guess to a degree, like being a gambling addict, right? It's very difficult to admit to being a gambling addict because people instantly look at you and go, bit of a failure, right?
I'm 1 win away from getting back on a hot streak. You said something really interesting before about we don't talk about money when we're little, and I think we're heavily dependent on our parents, really, because schools don't teach you about money. Slowly changing, but at a snail's pace. And those lessons you get taught from your parents, just like a lot of things, they get ingrained into you from a really early age. So if you get really good habits from your parents, then you're going to be set up in a really nice way. But if you get those bad habits where, well, my parents don't talk to me about how much they earn or the value of a house or their goals in the future, then you're probably going to struggle to share those with your spouse and with your kids.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that because of that, and we always talk about the snowball effect with wealth, and the earlier you take steps, the easier it is, and these sorts of things. It ends up being at the last minute that people try and do something about the short-term debt or something like that, because they just don't take steps early to figure it out. And then even on the positive side as well, same with like savings and these sorts of things, right? People try and leave it to the last minute because they're embarrassed to talk about it.
Yeah, so part of the question, I guess, becomes like, how do you have a discussion with your partner in that situation about money? And there's no rocket science to this. It's about opening up and being transparent, and probably setting like joint goals together that you can be excited about for the future, which seems so bloody obvious, but a lot of people go their whole lives with and not have those conversations. And you think about how many relationships break down because of money. It would be a very decent chunk of divorces.
Yeah, and it's not something just that sort of, I guess, young people run into. I'm talking across the full age spectrum here. Like, it's 50s, 60s onwards, where there might be a real asymmetric sort of level of involvement in the finances, and one partner has almost no idea what's going on, and the other one knows everything about what's going on. And that needs to balance out. Both people in the relationship should sort of know, this is roughly where we're at and what's going on with the finances.
Yeah. Okay, Mike. So I know you've done some research for this one. Where do you want to take this next?
Yeah, cool. So the other thing to think about with the psychology of money is sort of like, what is your money personality type? There are a lot of different personality types when it comes to money, right? There's the compulsive spender, the stress spender, the warrior, the gambler. There's a whole lot of different things. And you should really know, how do you approach money? And how do you approach your finances and these sorts of things, right? Because that, once you realize sort of, okay, this is my pattern, then you can start to make some decisions around it.
Yeah. And the other thing I find is when I'm meeting with couples, it's very rare you marry your same personality, money personality. Finally got that out. And that can create, and the big thing is there's frustration going, why is this person different to me when they think about money, when I'm a spender and they're a saver, or all of these, which it would be quite interesting, maybe to talk a little bit about some of these personalities a little bit more. But the big thing probably to realize, which you don't understand because you're only living in your bubble, is that's pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody marries somebody that is different from them. Opposites attract. And that's where you need to find a system that works for you.
That's why we work so well together. Yeah. No, but and I think if you are finding it difficult to have the conversations, or you think we're just not on the same page and that sort of thing, and I always say this, right? You should outsource this sort of knowledge to the experts. Is maybe you should have a financial advisor. Maybe you should have a plan in place. Maybe that is the thing that means that actually our approach to money is cohesive to our relationship. We have common goals. We know how we're going to get there, and you have accountability.
Yeah. Instead of like if you're two savers and you are good with you have good financial literacy, maybe there's an argument you don't need a financial plan. But say the cost of a financial plan is like $2,000 plus just hell of a lot easier to get on the same page. Some very cheap marriage counseling, and it's not just the cost. I'm saving you half of your stuff by getting this right.
No, absolutely. And I think before we wrap it up, it's probably important to point out that money can have a really big impact on your mental health, and financial struggles can really sort of push people to a pretty dark place. So it is important, to have the discussions early, even if it's not with a financial advisor, with your spouse, that sort of thing, and make sure that these issues don't multiply, right, or really weigh you down.
Because we're in 2023. 2023, we've said multiple times, is not going to be an easy year. There's going to be more pain before it gets better. So this talking about it now, you can imagine how much, like, in terms of getting behind on car loans and afterpays and credit cards, and how I'm going to pay our mortgage repayments, and I don't want to stress out my spouse. You can imagine, actually, just as I say this out loud, the stress some people will be carrying at the moment, the burden they'll be carrying.
You think about Xero. Xero just cut 800 staff, right? Like, you cannot tell me that has not caused a massive amount of financial pressure for 800 people plus their families.
Before we wrap it up, Mike, can we just a little bit on how other people perceive you around money as well? So, like, the whole keeping up with the Joneses mentality as well, which we haven't been. It's probably a stupid question to go, why do we care what other people think in terms of pay more for this brand opposed to another brand, or we buy the nicer car or whatever it might be? Anything to touch on there?
Yeah, I think, there's always been a social pressure to be successful in society. And I think that recently, with the prevalence and the amount of usage of social media, that has really just increased, right? Instagram, Facebook are basically feeds where you are going to compare yourself to other people and think, why don't I have that life, right? And, they use that as a tool to sell you more things, whether that is an exercise program, shoes, clothes, anything you don't need. You've got to start with your finances. Well, we talk about it all the time, even with the budgeting, the fixed costs, your savings jar, your emergency fund, these sorts of things. That's what you've got to do first. You can't be looking out into just, hey, I don't have a Rolls Royce and a private jet. Why don't I have that?
Yeah. And part of money is really being quite clear on your values. And if you understand who you are, and this is getting a bit bloody deep, understanding who you are as a person, what's important to you, you can then set meaningful goals off the back of it, which then helps you make meaningful financial decisions and puts you in a good position long term. But if you're focusing on what other people think of you and make money decisions, you're never going to achieve financial freedom. You're never going to achieve the life
you've just got to look in and be like, at my core, I am just a Warriors supporter.
Great. Mike, anything to add before we wrap this up?
I think that's everything.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure to subscribe, give us a review, and we will catch you next time.
Cheers.